Weather Scope.
A storm system is engulfing most of the eastern half of the nation tonight. It's produced hail, powerful winds, and a lot of rain. Good evening and welcome to Weather Scope. I'm Warren Madden. We'll have live team coverage of our top story plus in-depth analysis. Let's begin with Mike Seidel. He's been tracking the storm from our forecast center.
And Warren, last night this storm put down tornadoes in Florida. We had a lot of severe weather today, as you mentioned, but primarily tonight it's just rain and some localized flooding. Again, a system with a lot of mild air, so we're not seeing a whole lot of frozen precipitation. Take a look at the national weather map and set the stage here, and the storm is moving up through the Ohio Valley, so that is bringing warm air up the eastern seaboard, and that will keep most of you in the big cities in liquid precip and not the solid form as far as sleet, freezing rain, or the snow. Slaughter Beach to Eastport. Large area of the northeast coast down towards the Delaware beaches under gale warnings. That means winds could gust in excess of 45 to 50 miles an hour tonight, and that seems very likely. And because those winds are blowing onshore, we could have some coastal flooding. High tide running about midnight in the New England area, so watch out at that point. And we only think we'll have to worry about one high tide as far as the risk of flooding goes. We've got team coverage from the Northeast, including Jim Cantori in snowy Worcester, Massachusetts, and Bill Keneally on the South Shore, Long Island. We'll start off with Bill. And Bill, today we've seen the rain and the wind. Now the tide is coming in. Where do you expect the water to end up tonight there where you are?
Well, Mike, you mentioned the high tide is around midnight on the New England coast, as well as off to my right here in Long Beach on the South Shore of Long Island. Now, we are beyond the full moon, and we're about halfway to the new moon, so the lunar cycle is fairly low. Hopefully that's not going to be a big deal, but it is a rather insidious northeast wind blowing down the beach right now, gusting at times, I would guess, better than 40 miles per hour. As far as the city goes, New York, by the way, is off to my left. The areas to watch, I'd say, be the taller bridges, the Verrazano Narrows, the upper level of the GW Bridge, as well as the Throgs Neck Bridge. As far as flooding at high tide goes, possibly I'd say western Long Island Sound. That would be our big concern as you get out there towards, say, Rye Playland, maybe over by the Flushing Bay area. So the big news here, not snow, but rain and a lot of wind and maybe some high tide at midnight and again around midday tomorrow. Now for the other aspect of our storm, winter. Let's turn it over to Jim outside of Boston, Mass. Jim?
Well, Bill, we've had changes once again this half hour. We've gone from what was a snow and snow pellet mix last half hour, and it's coming down pretty heavily, where we accumulated to an inch of this stuff, to now mostly sleet and rain. So it's changed over here. The temperature's 30 degrees, so we may have some freezing rain problems here in Worcester. But what a difference. I mean, just 30 minutes makes, as you kind of look behind me here, you can see the slush that's on the roads, and the fact that we've decreased that intensity of the snow, and with traffic moving over it and perhaps a little salt that was laid down, we've almost lost that slush pack completely. So roads are just basically wet now this evening. But we have had changeover. And folks, you got to remember, Worcester's here at 800 feet, or actually 1,000 feet at the airport, but we're at 800 feet. And, you know, the warm air is up at this level as well. So be careful traveling tonight. We got some wet roads for you and a mixture of rain and sleet as we speak. Back to you, Mike.
Unfortunately for you, Jim, it looks like most of the snow is over with. Okay, Jim Cantori in Worcester, Massachusetts. We turn our attention now to the analysis of what's going on. Colin Marquis from the Forecast Center, meteorologist, and we compare storms continuously here at the Weather Channel. Let's compare this one with the previous 2 or 3 we've dealt with on the East Coast.
Okay, much less powerful, Mike, as far as wind speed goes, and also the duration of the strongest winds. So we're not talking about a repeat by any means of the devastating flooding across portions of the, portions of the Mid-Atlantic states. Much more minor impacts along the coast.
Good news for the coastal residents. Let's take a look at what we see from space or a satellite perspective. And the big spin, obviously not along the eastern seaboard. However, we do expect secondary development to take place later on tonight and tomorrow.
Right where the warm front crosses the coast there, we will expect another area of low pressure to get going and then head on off to the east of Cape Cod. That's going to maintain some bit of cold air across the interior sections of New England and allow those folks to have a mix and some light accumulations.
And as Jim Cantori just talked about in Worcester, they've gone from snow over to sleet and freezing rain. We've had some sleet and freezing rain in pockets across parts of interior New York, but basically what we've seen has been rain. In fact, right now these storms causing some problems just outside of D.C. We have flash flood warnings for Culpeper County, Orange County, and Fauquier County. The ground is saturated. So for those of you in the western suburbs of Washington, look out. If you're in a flood-prone area, low-lying area, seek shelter right now. As far as the rest of us go overnight, mostly a rain event, right, Colin?
Right. Major cities from Boston, Hartford down to New York City, no problems. But west of Boston and into the extreme northern portions of Connecticut, that's where the slippery spots are going to be. And once you get up into northern New England, we're going to be talking about some areas by the end of tomorrow receiving several inches of snow.
Good for skiing there.
Yep.
Okay, the roads look okay along the immediate eastern seaboard. And of course, we'll keep you updated. Thanks, Colin, for the analysis there. And if you're away from your TV set, you can always go online at weather.com, our Weather Channel online service. And tonight at 10 and 10:30 Eastern, a special edition of WeatherScope will have live coverage, East Coast, West Coast, and wrap up the entire day's weather events. Now back to the studio. Warren Madden has more on the western weather. Warren?
Thanks, Mike. Parts of California beginning to dry out tonight after recent rains drenched the area. The map shows that the storm has moved farther inland now and is affecting the state primarily of Arizona. Let's go to the maps. And there you can see that low pressure in south.